Everyone needs a little bit of help. So in today's video, we'll be looking at help inside. It's quite a popular topic that comes up on a lot of questions on my videos. So today I'm going to be going through what actually help inside is and how it can really benefit your shots. So help inside will depend on basically which way you're cutting the object ball. So I'm going to give you a couple of just basic examples here of on a black, because obviously it's a great shot to practice anyway. So on a high black like this, if I was going to play with help inside, it would be a trace of right hand side, because I'm cutting the object ball to the left, and the cue ball, after it's left the black, is traveling naturally to the right from where I'm standing. So that's the easiest way. If you've come to a shot and you're not sure which side help inside is, you can think of it two ways. You can think of maybe which way you're cutting the ball, and obviously it would be the opposite, or maybe the easier way would be is when the cue ball's left the object ball, which way is it traveling? So like I say, this would be a trace of right, and it's really important that it's just a tiny bit of side. So in that way, it wouldn't really change the effect on your alignment very much at all. If you find that you're starting to miss the ball quite a lot, it might be because you're putting too much right hand side on. But I'll just give you a little example of trying to pot the black with a little bit of help inside. So you can see that I've potted the black, cue balls come off the cushion, and obviously there's a trace of right on, so it started slightly taking effect off the cushion and coming back to me a little bit. So a lot of people would say, why would you play that shot with help inside? Now, there's a few sort of theories behind this. One of the ones that I like to try and explain in simple terms is it's very difficult to hit the middle of the white consistently in snooker just generally. So what we're sort of doing is by edging with tip just slightly to the right, we're almost making the sweet spot of, or where we want it, the cue ball, the area on the cue ball is actually a little bit bigger, because like I say, once it's come off the cue ball, a little bit of right spin is just helping the cue ball travel more naturally on its path. So you can find that it's almost a little bit more, in some ways, a bit more like forgiving and just a better way, because this kind of shot, rarely would you want to, if you are trying to just play this with middle all the time, and obviously like I say, it's hard to hit middle, there's obviously also more chance of you slightly drifting to the left, maybe if your cueing's not perfect, which I think's also a massive, really important. So if you are trying to come off the cushion here and accidentally put a little bit of left on, you would see a totally different, obviously, reaction in the cue ball. So when I was playing that shot there, I knew the cue ball really with a trace of right was going to come back towards me. Now you can do that, like you say, with just maybe a bit of stun, but if you put a little bit of left on by accident, that isn't going to come back towards us now. It's going to start traveling possibly too straight up the table or on the other side. So like I say, we're trying to actually almost make the part of the cue ball you're hitting a little bit bigger, which is ideal. Like I say, a little bit more forgiveness, so making with percentages a little bit higher. So I'm just going to give you another example on this high black. I think it's a great shot to practice anyway, the high blacks, because obviously it's an important shot, and it's like I say, if you're starting to experiment and play with a little bit of help inside, you can really, see the effects of it, and how it can really be an advantage. So I'm going to try and come off the cushion and just play up for this red in the same pocket. So it'll be a trace of right all the time, but just picking the correct height on the cue ball now to get it to come off the cushion and back up to this red. So pick me height, trace of right, off the cushion there, and nice and high on the red. so I can get back towards the black. So just as I mentioned before, a lot of people would just play this shot as a normal stun shot. Again, what can happen, there's a couple of things that can happen actually, but the one I mentioned before would be we're trying to be really in the middle, but we'd put a tiny bit of left on by mistake, and the white totally changes the reaction. So you can see there, I've actually missed the black because the little bit of left starting to push the cue ball that way as well. See, so that threw my alignment off completely because I'm actually used to playing it with the helping side now every time. And also the biggest thing as well, the cue balls travelled up the table and actually kissed the red, which we didn't want to do. So the problem is, what people tend to do is, to fix that shot, they would think that they haven't hit low enough because they've seen the cue ball travel up in cannon the red. So their feedback to themselves is, well, I haven't stunned it enough. So they just go lower on the cue ball. So you get this. So then now you get the second problem of just playing this black as a stun shot. So they're thinking, right, I'm going to go a bit lower so I don't hit the red, come off the cushion, and then all of a sudden, because they've hit lower now, we've landed next to the side cushion. Basically what's happening there is there's too much adjustment going on, but also they've sort of diagnosed the shot incorrect. And that's why, like I say, getting used to playing these with a trace of right hand side, it's almost safer because we know once it hits a cushion, it's going to react slightly. So my tip position on these shots would be very consistent, like I say, and we can afford to actually hit a little bit higher on the cue ball, and just that little bit of right, you see, is going to bring it back, but it's also keeping the cue ball traveling up the table rather than coming back towards the cushion. Just to give you like a little example of how much help inside we're talking about, just going to give you, like I say, a little example here, just firing straight across the table with what I'm calling a trace aside, and seeing how much the cue ball is actually going to react. So I'll do this one with a tracer right, so I'm just a tiny bit. So you can see there, I've hit straight across the cushion, tiny bit, and it's only coming back this far. It's not really aggressively spinning, and also I'm using the spotted cue ball for you, so you can almost see as the cue ball's traveling the cushion, it's very, very minimal. So if I did a little bit left, you can see the results pretty much the same. My cue ball, my line was roughly about here. You know, I haven't got to be exact with this, but it's just giving you a bit of a feedback. And the measurement was almost equal there. That's something you could actually try yourself a little bit, because sometimes, again, one of the common things I see in lessons is people aren't actually hitting the cue ball where they think they are or where they're intending. So just a dead little simple practice thing like that of going across the cushion with what you think a trace of right and left is, and seeing actually if the reaction is the same. Because one of the other things that I think is really a good thing about the helping side is you're going to train yourself so that both sides of the table are the same. So if I do the high blacks, obviously, like I showed you there, I'm doing it from this side with a trace of right, and on the other side it would be a trace of left. So the shots are exactly the same. Obviously, just on the other side of the table, it's going to be the opposite side spin that you put on. So helping side, it can obviously take more effect when we play it off cushions, but also I think it doesn't have to be playing off cushions. So I'm just going to show you here now an example of a low black, where now, because I'm cutting the ball to the right and the cue ball's traveling to the left, I'm going to play this with a trace of left as well. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of stun on the ball, but also I'm going to play a little bit of left because it's just the cue ball's naturally traveling that way. So if you think about it, you know, we would never want to put right on this shot, would we? Because the cue ball's traveling to the left, so it's almost fighting against it. So it can actually make that cue ball just travel a fraction easier. And again, what I mentioned before as well is I do feel like it's almost creating a bigger area for you to strike the cue ball better generally. The other little thing I'm going to mention, but obviously you've got to be careful, and that's why we're just playing with a tracer side, is I wouldn't say helping side massively helps you pot the ball, but my other theory is a lot of amateurs on low blacks hit what we call the near jaw. So by putting obviously a tiny bit of left spin on, that is actually going to almost help this shot hit the ball a little bit thicker towards the far jaw as well. Because again, the common mistakes I'm seeing on this shot in the club is people are trying to just hit middle of the cue ball, and they might do it quite now and then, but they're closer to actually putting right spin on as well. So what ends up happening is they put a tiny bit of right on, cue ball deflects, obviously can deflect to the left then, too far, and the black would hit the near jaw, which is a big no-no on blacks, and want to be potting it slightly more to the far jaw. I've spoke about this in a few other videos to do with just potting and also just all part of your break building. Yeah, I think that's quite a good little thing you can look at when you're practicing these. If you're finding that you're hitting that near jaw quite a lot, yes, it's mainly down to your alignment, but also it could be how you're striking the cue ball. So let's try one with a tracer left to see how it should look. So I've got my line, a little bit of stun, but just a tiny, tiny bit of left. And you can see there, I'm not hitting it too hard, obviously it's just a short shot, tiny bit of side. I'm obviously used to doing that. I've been practicing it this way now for probably, 20 years. And it just feels like actually the shot, once you get used to that, actually feels easier. The other thing about helping side is, obviously from this shot, it's always going to be right spin, but it doesn't always mean running side, because that's the other thing that I hear quite a lot as well in the clubs and talking to people explaining it, is automatically people just think playing with right hand side from here is going to be running side, and that's not going to be the case. So that's why I think these blues are a really good example of how it can be check side and running side. So basically the shot I've just done was a nice positional shot off the bottom cushion and back up. And because the cue balls went sort of forward from this position with the right, it's acted as check side. So it stopped the cue ball traveling towards the side cushion. Now the next shot I'm going to do is, again, it's going to be right hand side, but this time it's going to turn into running side, because let's say in a game of snooker, you can't go down that side of the table. There might be other balls in the way. We've got to get the cue ball coming down this side of the table and try and finish on this side here for the red into that corner pocket. So the way I would do it would be to go lower on the cue ball with that little bit of right hand side. So this time the cue ball would actually come off two cushions and back out for the red. Because again, what a lot of people try to do in this position is go lower, but just to come off one cushion and back up. And again, very often the cue ball finishes on this side cushion. So they're not getting a great result, because the cue ball is obviously starting to travel back anyway. So again, the helping side is almost just still continuing that path, but just bringing it a little bit more of this cushion quicker, and then out for the red, like I say. So we'll give that a try. Nice shot to be able to play this. So a bit of backspin, trace of right hand side. So low, right hand side, 1, 2, and out perfectly on the red. So I'd be very happy with that. Obviously that's come off. I've got the pace right and the spin absolutely spot on. And obviously that just comes from a lot of practice. Sometimes I show people these shots in the, you know, it is obviously getting a little bit more advanced, but I honestly believe that, you know, if you're even at a decent level, you can definitely learn to play these shots. I think people like get a little bit sort of apprehensive and not sure about playing with side, but a couple of good examples there of why helping side can really start helping get the cue ball basically where you want it to go. So can we do helping side on long shots? Obviously the answer is yes. The two reasons I'm going to do this shot here, and obviously again, because I'm on this side of the table, I'm cutting the ball slightly to the left. Cue ball's traveling to the right, so I'm going to put a tiny bit of right spin on. So again, it's going to help the cue ball travel to where I want it to go. Obviously, it's going to hit the cushion, and I'm ideally playing for the black in the same pocket. The other thing, as I mentioned earlier, that I think it can help people with is, I would say 90% of people that I coach miss this kind of shot thin. Again, that can be mainly down to alignment of how you see the shot, but also it can be partly because you're trying to hit middle all the time and stun it in, and you might be putting a tracer left on by accident, because we're not robots, so we can't be perfect. So that little bit of right spin can really help you actually hit this ball a little bit thicker and into the, you know, well, obviously middle of the pocket, lovely, or little bit more even to the far jaw. So let's try that. So a little bit of stun, tracer right. So you can see there, I potted the ball, nice clean pot, little bit of side on, it's come off the cushion. Yes, I'm not perfect on the black, but on a long shot like that, you know, the main thing is potting the ball. We would never want the cue ball coming off there, obviously with left on and checking. And like I say, that would be by accident. So let's be a little bit more deliberate with where we're hitting the cue ball. Trace of helping side, again, right on that shot. And almost, again, you're creating a little bit more of a bigger part on the cue ball to hit. But as I said earlier, it's just a tiny, tiny bit of side. So I'm not altering my potting line too much at all. So again, I hope you've obviously enjoyed that video all about helping side. Again, like I said, it's a hot topic that I see a lot in like the comments on the videos, and even on like the Facebook groups and the chats of people talking about it. But the fact is that virtually all professionals play a lot of shots with helping side. So there's reasons for it. They don't just do it because they're the best players in the world. They do it because it actually is making things a bit actually easier for them. And like I say, it's helping them. That's why it's called helping side. So I hope that's shown you what you can do. Obviously, again, with this stuff, as I've always said in all the videos, it's going to take a lot of time in practice to maybe get that into your game. But I do recommend you try it. As always, leave us a comment below of anything you want to see in future videos, and make sure you've liked the video and subscribe.